Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Strangers Chapter 2. So, I was originally going to upload this video in October for Halloween month because it's a slasher movie, which is only 2 days away. However, I can't even really truly call this a slasher. Like, I just can't. I just felt like it would disrespect it. And I've uploaded bad like slasher movies during October month with my template and stuff like that. I just don't have the heart to do that this time. I am so disappointed in this movie, you have no idea. Because the thing is, I'm not the hugest The Stranger fans. I particularly didn't really like the first movie. It was interesting and the concept was intriguing, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. Then with the second one, I really wanted to like because it had Christina Hendricks in it and also Bailey Madison. But that movie was slightly a little boring, not too boring, but there was just some weird choices they made in that movie. But for the most part, I just tend to watch it time and time again because those two are in it. Then like nearly, well, how long has it been since these movies came out? I want to say it's been over 10 years or maybe close to 18 or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, last year, I believe is when it came out. I'm not 100% sure. They started to make like a trilogy and a reboot of like The Strangers. And so when I heard that what's her name? I know who this actress is. I just can't think of her name right now. I think it's Madeline Petrus. Like, I really wanted to see those movies with her in it because, like, even though I really hate Riverdale, like, I gave up on it halfway in the second season. She was one of the best parts in it. And so I liked her character, and plus, she has an amazing look to her. And so, like, I really wanted to see, what she can do outside of, like, Riverdale because her acting career isn't like that big, especially being on Riverdale for like what 7 years, something like that. And so like, but she was one of the better parts of Riverdale. And even when they had Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina actress on there, I decided to pop in and see what those episodes were like about. And she was always like, one of the best parts. She's not exactly the most like amazing actress ever, but she is a pretty good actress. But I still wanted to see what she's like outside of Riverdale. So I heard she's gonna be co-producing. I heard she's gonna be the lead actress in this, and again, 3 movies. So I was ecstatic. I watched that first movie, and for the most part, it's not a horrible movie. It's just a repetitive movie, like we've seen it before. They literally chopped up the first 2 movies from a long time ago and added a little bit of new material and then called it like The Strangers Chapter 1. Problem is, nobody wanted to rehash what we already saw before. I get it, nostalgia is big right now. But you gotta be creative, you gotta be inventive, and you got to like fulfill what you said you was gonna do. Make it different, make it big, make it bold, and finally explain who these strangers are. The first movie really didn't do that. Also, I felt like her and her co-lead just had no chemistry together. And while I think she did a pretty good job in acting in that first movie, there were some lines where it was kind of like, I think she tried a little too hard to distance herself from like, like CW Riverdale and everything. Like the scene when they was at the cabin sitting down on the couch and they're like cuddling and talking. It felt a little odd. But for the most part, her acting was pretty good. Now, in this second movie, her acting is phenomenal. She is great in this movie. Only problem is while she's good at her facial expressions, while she's good at like running and screaming and all this and acting innocent and acting paranoid, acting scared, she doesn't have much dialogue. But when she does have dialogue, it is pretty good. It just sucks that this movie sucks. So it's kind of like she had a phenomenal acting ability in this movie, but in a very lackluster movie and everything. It's kind of hard to even call this a movie. All she literally does is run in this movie, and I kid you not. She's just running all throughout this movie, and it's like there's barely a chase sequence. There's barely any action. There's really ain't no gore. There's really ain't no blood. There's barely any dialogue from any characters, and it's just kind of like, what is this? And it's just kind of like they don't build up like their secondary characters all that well. They give you the biggest red herring, which you saw a mile come away in the trailer about the four people in the car. She fights a boar. And we finally get to know at least who one or one and a half of the strangers is, and they don't even build no suspense to it. They literally just tell you in the first couple of seconds of the movie opener. And it's somebody we already guessed from the first movie because it's kind of like that person lured them to the freaking cabin to begin with. And it's just kind of like they put no effort into this movie. And the whole who's Tamara thing, which how come it's not called Tamara? They call it Tamara. But who the whole who Tamara thing is a big letdown. And the weird thing is that all these movies were filmed back to back to back. And like, you don't do that unless you know you have an amazing writer and director and everything. But it's just kind of like here, they don't get no feed. Well, this is the problem with filming back to back to back. You can't get no feedback because everything's filmed. However, they did the smart thing by listening to the feedback of the first movie and changing stuff in the second movie. This movie was supposed to come out last year. Maybe the first one came out 2 years ago. But anyway, this was supposed to come out last year. And it got delayed because they had to change some stuff. What the heck did they change? I want to see what that original movie was supposed to look like. Because what did they add that was supposed to be so amazing and fix the first movie? It's so lackluster. And I hate saying that, because I really would like to see this actress succeed outside of Riverdale. And there is a third movie that's still coming and everything, but it's just kind of like, I honestly don't even care no more. And it's just kind of like, I could care less who the other two strangers are. I mean, we kind of know who the guy is, the Scarecrow, but we just don't know what the adult version looked like or what his name is. And it's just kind of like, I honestly don't care no more. This movie is like literally a waste. All this money's been wasted. It's only been in theaters for, let's see, what day is this? Okay, technically it's Monday morning at like 12 a.m. So it's only been out for like 3 days and it's only made $5 million at the box office. It's okay to like a bad movie. Heck, I like a couple of bad movies. It's even okay to like a couple of bad slasher movies. I have a couple that I like, But even with those bad slasher movies, I still say they're bad. It's just they have some interesting parts in them. A little tweaking here and there, and they'll be better. The only problem is this movie has been tweaked. And it still sucks. Like, seriously, I'm not the type of person who says, like, never go watch this movie. It's just not worth it. However, I'm gonna break that rule and say, don't watch this movie. It's really not worth it unless you want to watch 80 minutes of like a woman running in the woods and screaming and hollering and getting bruised up and fighting a boar and being scared out her mind and paranoid. And unless you want to see that for 80 minutes, then go right ahead. But it's just not worth it. Wait till this is on streaming or something like that. And, I would say, like, come the third movie, something needs to change. But the problem is, they already filmed it. If they're gonna tweak it, what I'm about to say really ain't gonna matter. But somebody needs to be fired. Like, if the third movie was never made, which it is, somebody needs to be fired. And I'll get into who at the end of this video. And even if these people wanted to make a new movie based on something else, somebody needs to be fired. Because there's no excuse for this. Slasher is not a hard genre to like make. Literally a college student can do it with a crappy digital camera, some fake blood, and a couple of friends. This is just like really, really sad. And once again, I feel bad for this actress, and I'll get more to that at the end of the movie. And so, first, let me just say that, okay, they filmed it in the country, Barcelona, I think. Now, first of all, the woods of Barcelona aren't really that like scary looking. Like woods in America look scary looking. Woods in New Zealand look scary looking. Woods in wherever they filmed those underworld movies from the early 2000s, those woods look scary. These woods don't look scary. They're nice, but they don't look scary. And, the extras, which barely there are any extras. See, here's the thing, right? They keep trying to make you think everybody in town could be a suspect. I get that. That's what normal slasher movies do. They take it a step further than that. And I said this in the first movie. Everybody has that like really, really extreme horror movie hillbilly redneck stare to them. Like it's the over exaggeration of like a group of people. See, in horror and slasher, whenever there's like a hick or a redneck or like a hillbilly type person, they make them the most extreme characters like ever. The like grumpy looks on their face, the suspicious looks on their face, the dumb hillbilly looks on their face, the mentally inept looks on their face, the paranoia looks on their face, and the look that they're gonna kill you just by looking at you. It's the most extreme level ever. I blame Chainsaw or Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they the ones who really first kind of started that. But it's kind of like if you live in the South, then you know for a fact that redneck hicks are not like that. And they're doing this in movies just to make you think everybody's a suspect. But here's the thing, Scream famously said that line, and when you watch Scream, even though technically everybody in town is a suspect, you never suspect like these random background characters because they're as normal can be. It's always going to be one of the main cast members, but who's it going to be? Problem is with this movie, they make you want to think everybody's a suspect, and it just comes off as very cheap and lazy and kind of pathetic. Not only that, but for the people who don't live in this country, they're really wasting people's time flying them out there just for like a quick cameo or a teeny tiny scene. Like the boyfriend from like the first movie, he comes back as like a cameo in the morgue. But then there's this actress. Her name is Ella, and I forget her last name. And I recognize her from Called the Midwife. And I also remember her from, I think it's called Polite Society. It's a movie. I don't think I've ever talked about it, but it's a pretty funny movie and it's a little odd at the same time. And she's a pretty like funny actress in that movie. And Called the Midwife show, she don't do much because she's a nun. And I'm not even sure if she's still on there, but she's a pretty likable actress and everything, and I'm okay with her. She's in both these movies. I don't know about the third. And she's a waitress. And well, in the first movie, she had a teeny tiny part in a teeny tiny line of dialogue. And in the second movie, she had a teeny tiny part and a teeny bit to say. And I'm just kind of like, the woman is British. They literally fly her from Britain all the way to Barcelona. I think that's where they filmed this movie at. Just to have a teeny tiny line and a teeny tiny scene. That's a waste of time. And that's a waste of talent. They could have literally got a local to do something like that. And not only that, but the actress, no offense to her, is not exactly the biggest, most famous actress ever. So it's not like she's bringing in like a big fan base. Why put her on a plane, fly her over there for something so tough? It's a waste of freaking time. Just like the boyfriend from the first movie. It's like, well, they filmed it all back to back to back, so I guess like they're not flying them back and forth for the next movie. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a waste of a role and everything. But on to this movie. So, surprise to nobody, because I'm pretty sure if you watched the first movie, you guess who one of the strangers was. It is none other than Sally. And Sally is the waitress from the first movie who told the couple that, hey, you can just stay in this cabin that I know and blah, blah, blah. And because the one thing people kind of figured out was, how did the strangers know somebody's going to be staying in this cabin? It had to be somebody from the restaurant, but most likely it's probably going to be her. And I think she even drove them there. So she knew where the place was at, and that's how they got attacked. When I say there is no build up in this movie to revealing who she is as the pinup girl, I mean there is no suspense, there is no build up, there is no nothing. It literally starts in the beginning of the movie with her mask pulled over her head, asking, is Tamara there? Then you see the strangers kill like this random man. Then when the cops tell this other waitress who's much older that like, oh no, not the couple's not all dead, the girl survived and everything, everybody in the diner just looks around like, what? And she just kind of looks and stares with a surprised, angry look on her face. And then we get a flashback of some random little girl who doesn't say nothing. And the little girl just sitting there playing in the sand, and she has like a little guy friend, and here comes some random girl and kicks over her little sand castle. Then she gets mad and she knocks the rest of her sand castle over. And so we keep getting these flashbacks for her. And in the flashback, the little boy decided he's not going to play with Shelly no more. And instead, he's going to play with the other girl. The other girl goes in kind of like this outhouse. He knocks 3 times in the same manner as the strangers and asks, is Tamara there? She opens up. She gives him a kiss on the lips. He closes the door. So little Shelly decides she's going to knock on the door, asks, is Tamara there? And when the girl opens, she takes a rock and she smashes the girl face in and kills her. Then her and the boy decide to play with the blood of the little girl and everything, as her body is just lying there, and they draw a happy face and everything, similar to what the strangers do. And the little girl who got her face and brain smashed out is named Tamara. So this is who the magical Tamara is and everything. And Sally's just a disturbed girl who did not like Tamara and decided to kill her because she's jealous of her. And that's the backstory as to why Sally is the way she is. Yeah, there's no dialogue of adult Sally to like hint that she might be pinup girl. There's no dialogue as to who the camera girl is when it comes to Sally. There's no like nothing. It's just literally told in a flashback and they just tell you, here you are and everything. And we know this whole Tamara thing has to be special because it's always brought up in every movie. And then when, wait, what's the main girl's name? Maya. Um, she asked the cop in the hospital in the beginning of the movie, who's Tamara and everything. And because it's kind of like, this is the weird thing, right? Now, if this was real life and say like you got attacked by a bunch of strangers and they lure you by opening the door and being like, is Tamara there, over and over, one might assume they just made up a name. It has no significance. But because in this movie they want you to make it think there's some type of significance, Maya literally asked the sheriff and the nurse, who's Tamara. She just starts asking people, who's Tamara? And then, of course, because they're like the extreme hicks, they just kind of look around, like looking at each other like, whoa, you know who Tamara is? Like they had that look on their face, you know? So we knew there was some significance to it. So you think there's going to be a big payoff, but there wasn't. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not even the biggest fan of this franchise. Even I want to know who Tamara is. So this is where this movie starts to get really stupid. Because this is a very stupid movie, but a lot of stupid decisions made and a lot of coincidences are made. So she's in the hospital, she wakes up, she talks to the sheriff, him and the other deputy dude, they leave. A nurse comes in, gives her some medication, this and that. Now remember how the first movie ended? She's literally in the bed and the strangers like hovering over her and stuff. I guess that must have been just dream of hers, or maybe they just decided, hey, just forget that ever happened, because the strangers haven't even really arrived in the hospital yet. And so she's paranoid and she wants to get the heck out of there. She gets a message from her sister-in-law and stuff like that, but it's not in real time, it's just like a recorded message. So in a way, she wants to get as far away from there as possible and all this other stuff, right? She starts to hear somebody scream off screen because her door is closed. You never see nobody die in this movie. It's always off screen. So we don't know who's getting got. And we don't really care because none of these characters and the background characters and recurring characters are like, you know, built up for you to want to care about them. So it comes like the stranger. She later gets on out of there and she's running through the halls, right? Now here's the odd thing. Where is everybody at? Where is the hospital staff? Where are the patients? Where are the people in the waiting room? Nobody is there. You mean to tell me that an entire hospital where people are supposed to get sick and supposed to be there, nobody's there, nobody's taking care of the ill? You literally have a survivor. Where are the cops at guarding her like room and everything? Nobody's there. Like, are we supposed to believe that the strangers just went hallway and hallway and just killed everybody? Like, the writing makes no sense here. It just doesn't. So then she hides in the morgue and she hides in one of the little frozen things. And she just happens to hide in the one where her fiance is in. That was random. So she's grief stricken, trying to cover her mouth because here comes the stranger. He sees her. But then all of a sudden, a medical staff finally shows up. And he kind of just stands there bewildered as he's getting killed. Then the stranger dude, I think, either leaves the room or like, because the killing happened off screen. So she later gets on out of there and she runs out like, you know, just a night, the hospital gown on, no shoes. So as she makes her way out of the hospital, I think she's in like the parking lot. And then there's some woman there. I don't know exactly who she is, but like the woman's telling Maya to stop. And so the woman starts to tell her, you know, there's like nothing you can do because the sheriff. And then before she can explain why the sheriff isn't going to help her, she gets killed by one of the strangers. And so this now really makes you think, okay, the sheriff is somehow involved. Most likely he's probably related to one of them, or maybe he was the father of Tamara. Who the heck knows, you know? But she makes her way out to the highway and she starts running and it's raining, where she gets stopped by a car and they recognize her. Now, first thing I want to know is, where's civilization at? She literally runs off into the highway where there's woods everywhere. You mean to tell me there's a hospital in town that's out in the middle of nowhere and there's no other like buildings or like businesses around there? Yeah, that's convenient. Anyways, so it's the scene from the trailer, and the person driving is the nurse that attended to her in the hospital, along with another woman. And when Maya's in the car, she's acting a little paranoid. She don't trust nobody, right? And because she knows there are two killers that are female. And so she starts to assume it might be them. So what does one do? She freaks out in the car, banging around, kicking around, trying to let me out, all this other crap. And they're kind of just, they're a little freaked out, but they're mostly calm as she's freaking out. I would be freaked out. I would have stopped the car and, you know, be all like, what's wrong with you? So like, what don't make no sense is that the nurse lady's all like, okay, I'm going to take you to my house and you can spend the night. And then in the morning we can go blah, blah, blah to like the sheriff place. She agrees only because she's kind of trapped in the car, but she could easily unlock it and jump out. But here's the thing. Why would a nurse offer to allow a complete stranger who's been attacked by killers to stay at her place overnight until it stops raining, this and that? Why don't she just take that girl to like the sheriff's station where she can actually be safe? Unless there's a reason why we can't trust the sheriff, but we don't know exactly what that is. And why didn't she take her to a hotel or something like that? Or take her to a bus station, or like, I don't know, an airport or something. Or, I don't know, someplace open where there's lots and lots of people. Anyways, as they're driving, there's two random guys on the side of the road. Coinky dink, they just happen to know the drivers and everything. That's kind of odd. And so they let them in. They're like, what are y'all doing in the rain? And something about your truck stopped and blah, blah, blah. They're either friends of theirs or they're roommates. And this is the scene from the trailer. And there's two women and there's two men. And one of the men has like a smiley face on like his neck tattooed. And the two guys are extremely creepy, especially tattoo guy. So of course she's paranoid. And what makes this scene even dumber is that the passenger of the seat of the car or whatever takes out an apple and takes out a buck knife and just starts carving the apple and eating the apple. First of all, this is to build suspense and to make you think, oh, you can't trust her and everything, because she just whipped out a giant hunting knife and decides to cut an apple and eat it. First of all, who really eats like that? Unless you're a cowboy, and this is the wild West, you ain't really gonna see nobody eat an apple like that. They're either gonna chew into it, or they're gonna get a tiny pocket knife and start like, you know, cutting small pieces and eating, not huge chunks with a big old buck knife and everything. And so she's even more freaked out as you hear this man preaching on the radio. These movies have always had some kind of weird religious thing to it that makes you think that maybe the strangers could be like a cult, but you don't really know. It's just always there. And so I think it was a reference to the first movie with them little religious boys were passing out flyers and stuff. So being her, she freaks out because, you know, she grabs the buck knife. She grabs a bag of like a medical kit and she finally opens the door to the car and she literally lunges out and hits the ground. And when she lunges out, she literally flew over the guy that was sitting there. And I'm just kind of like, she didn't even get caught up or nothing. So she hits the ground. She's running in the rain. And of course, she goes into the woods and she starts hiding. Because in the first movie, she's really good at hiding. They finally stop the car and they're looking for her with a flashlight. Now, this is meant to believe that these are the strangers. But sometimes the obvious choice is normally the wrong one. So this is when things get kind of weird. After a while, here come the actual strangers with their masks on. And now they're looking for her and everything. So she has some kind of like spear-like weapon and she stabs one of the girl strangers with. And so you think, okay, cool, she killed one. Nah, she's still alive. And once you stab one time, why didn't she keep on stabbing? Anyway, she hides for the rest of the night, and then in the morning, this is when things get kind of interesting and makes me just believe who the heck would write all this stuff. Like, okay, first of all, she has a big gash on her forehead and a big gash on like her side of her stomach. And so her wound's gonna get like infected and all this other stuff, right? And she has to change the band-aid. Well, remember, she grabbed the medical kit. And so with it, she takes out the disinfectant, she takes out the needle and thread, and she cleans her wound and she starts sewing herself up. And then she takes like what is it? A lighter, and she makes herself a little campfire. Now, the whole campfire, okay, fine, I can believe. She has lots of sticks out there, some disinfectant to make it light up a lot more, and she's keeping warm. Cool, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I can believe that. But the whole medical kit and her sewing herself up and everything, I just don't believe. I'm sorry. They're trying to make this character into the next big final girl. They're trying to make her into Sydney Prescott, Julie James, Laurie Strode. I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. Because the thing about all those women is that they're actually strong because of the crap that's happened to them. And they're courageous and survivors because of what happened to them in the first movie, and the second movie, and so on and so on and so on. They built that level of thickness and hardness and intelligence. She's only had one movie. And not only has she had one movie, but she's constantly running in fear of like the strangers. And so with the whole needle and thread and disinfectant, how does she know that like, oh, okay, I don't have a medical kit. I don't know what the disinfectant is called. I don't know if it's a big fancy medical term or whatever, but how does she know that's the right one? And two, in order to sew yourself up, technically, you don't really have to have no medical training for that. I mean, you can just sew yourself up. If you ever sew like a shirt or something like that back together. But the thing is, it will just be nice to get some kind of hint that she knows something about the medical business. Because, there was a movie I watched called Kiss of the Dragon. I reviewed that a couple of years ago. Jet Li got cut open on his arm. No, his shoulder, the back of his shoulder. And he couldn't sew himself because it was the back of his shoulder. But the thing about his character, he was a cop. And you could tell he had some kind of medical training because he knows a lot about like needles and pressure points and stuff. So that gives you the thought, okay, he knows a little something about medical, this and that, and how to sew something up properly and disinfecting and all this other crap, right? But he was unable to do it. So this prostitute comes in and she sews him up. At first, he didn't want her to. So she sews him up and he's all like, wow, you did a really good job of sewing me up. Because, there's a certain way you're supposed to just like do it. You just can't do it no crazy kind of way because you'll leave like scars and the chance of getting like infected and all this other crap, right? And so she tells him a teeny tiny backstory of how she knows how to sew up flesh. She used to live on a farm. The pigs would get out. They would get cut on the barbed wire fence. And she had to always sew them up. See, a couple of seconds. That's all you need. I need some kind of hint that she knows how to do this. But anyway. So as she's happy with herself and everything, with her little campfire, all of a sudden something starts running towards her. And so nobody knows what it is. You can't see it. So she hides in this abandoned car. And all of a sudden, something just keeps banging at the like abandoned car, busting out the windows, this and that. You assume it could be like the strangers, but you start hearing animal noises. So all of a sudden, it's a boar, a hairy, horned pig. It just randomly shows up and it just starts attacking the crap out of her. And first she pretends like she's dead, so it leaves her alone. But the moment she starts moving it, it comes back. It chews the crap out of her leg and mangles it. She's screaming, she's hollering. The thing rears back, is charging towards her. It leaps on top of her. She grabs like the pocket knife because see, first she had like a stick with fire to it and just hitting it in the face. Then when it leaped in the air on top of her, she had the buck knife and it fell on there. Then she starts stabbing it like crazy. So this is really the only real first kill you get to see on screen. She's fighting a boar. Whose idea was this? She didn't even stab one of the strangers over and over with the spear thing. She just stabbed one time and took off running. Was this one of the reshoots? I'm wondering. So anyways, the strangers are out there. They see some of her blood somewhere. So they start like looking for her and they find her. No, they don't find her. She makes it actually back to like the cabin from the first movie. Now, still, this is a girl who's in a town she's never been in before, and she's in the woods. Like when she went running into the woods to hide from like the medical people in the car, where did she think she was gonna go? Like, because she doesn't know this town. She doesn't know these woods. She could have been trapped there for weeks. Was she gonna live in the woods or something? And not only that, but why, with the buck knife and her campfire, why didn't she cut that boar up and make herself a meal? I mean, she hasn't eaten in a long time, but she makes her way back to the cabin that she was in the first movie. It's all taped up with caution tape and she's eating some of the food in the cabinets, and then all of a sudden one of the cops is there and he's all like he's gonna help her. Well, of course, as soon as he tries to get in his car, he gets shot with a crossbow by one of the strangers. So she's hoofing it again. And so she's running and all of a sudden she finds kind of like a lake house or another cabin in the woods, just a heck of a lot more fancier. She's banging on the door. She's scared. She's bloody. Her leg is mangled and chewed up, but yet she's able to take off running and limp her way on out of there. And some guy answers the door, and when she wakes up, wouldn't you guess who it is and who belongs to that house? Well, it's the medical people that found her in the outside when it was raining in the car, and the two guys that they picked up. How random is that? That is the biggest coinkydink. I gotta stop saying coinkydink like I've ever seen. It's a big coincidence and everything. And I'm just kind of like, out of all the people she finds their home, where are the rest of the buildings and homes at in this place? So anyways, an EMT comes in because I guess after they treated her wounds, they called the EMT to take her back to the hospital. They didn't call the sheriff, by the way. And the EMT's at a gas station and he's talking to another hick. And the EMT must be new to town because he doesn't know where nothing is. And he's all like, where is this place at? Why you want to know, boy? He doesn't actually say that, but it's the impression that you get. And he's all like, oh, I have to pick up this like girl, blah, 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 blah. So, of course, all of a sudden, now the strangers know where she's at because every time somebody says, oh, you know, there's this girl and she's blah, 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 then all of a sudden the strangers just show up. So that makes you think that the guy who works at the gas station, he's in on it, right? But he looks way too big and old to be like, you know, the scarecrow. So she's talking to the tattoo dude with like, you know, the smiley face. And he just happens to walk in with a buck knife and puts it in the drawer and starts asking her all these questions and all like, you're the only person to survive the strangers, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, at some point he leaves and then boom, the strangers show up. When she makes it out like the room and everything, she sees that the two medical nurses have been tied up and their throats slit. Biggest red herring ever. And the two guys were outside arguing about something. So did they get got? I honestly don't know. But anyways, here come the strangers and all this other crap. And so she sees the ambulance, the EMT, and the driver, he's dead. So somebody at that gas station must have knew something and let something slip. And so she's in the EMT and she's driving, and wouldn't you know, one of the strangers is there. So it's the pinup girl. They fight a little bit and everything, and she stabs her with scissors in the side of the head, but she survives. They struggle again, and then there's a crash. She makes it to someplace, I don't know where exactly, and she kills the pinup girl. I think she chokes her or she stabs her. She does something to her. I forget how she dies, but she kills her. And so then she hides like behind something as she's seeing the other two strangers come. And then all of a sudden, the Scarecrow dude is really sad and everything. And he takes off the mask, the pinup girl, and it's Sally. But we already knew that. And then we get the flashback of Sally killing Tamara and the little boy who was her friend playing in the blood, but the smiley face. So Scarecrow is her friend, but we don't know his name or what he looks like as an adult. And then it says to be continued. Waste of time, waste of money. I don't get this. It was literally, it was like an 85-minute movie. 5 minutes for credits, I guess. It's like an 80-minute movie of her running and barely talking. This is a waste of a movie, and somebody needs to be fired. So let's look at our suspects, shall we? Rennie Harlan. He's the director of this movie and the first, and most likely he's the third. Then you have the two Allens who wrote these movies. You have Alan Freeland, and then you have Alan Cohen. Then you have Lionsgate, who, you know, the company that helped make this. And then you have the lead actress herself, Madeline, because not only, because she's more than just like a lead actress, she's a co-producer, or at least an executive producer. And an executive producer has some swaying power. Either one of these people or all of them screwed this movie up. And so, like, seriously, if the third movie was never made, I would say fire whoever screwed these two movies up, or at least fire the person who screwed the second movie up, and just not rehire them again in terms of being creative, in terms of either directing, writing, or producing, because somebody here is to blame for this, and I don't know who, because it's way too soon and nobody's spilling any beans yet. I say give it a couple of months or a year after the third movie, and somebody's gonna run off the mouth and start explaining their side of the story and be like, hey, don't blame me, blame this other person. Because somebody screwed this second movie completely up. Somebody decided to rehash the first two movies and make it into chapter one. Somebody decided to make the second movie into a lackluster giant chase sequence where somebody's fighting a boar and the most like random coincidences just happen to happen with no build up, no real good backstory, nothing leading up to the major reveals, no nothing. And like I said before, I want Madeline to succeed, you know what I'm saying? Because she's a very talented actress. She is flawless and everything. I don't like to call people perfect by the way they look, but my God, this woman is perfect. She can act. She has the look. This isn't like the first type of like, well, it's kind of the first slashery thing she's been in. But see, here's the thing. I said she produced this movie. Now, she's produced two other movies she starred in. Both are like psychological thriller drama type movies. I have no idea how they did, but now I'm kind of curious to see what they are about. But despite this being her third project she's produced, I would say that this is her test, her real true test if she has like that producing potential and everything. You know what I'm saying? Because the other two movies nobody's never heard of. There's really no reviews about that. They seem to kind of just like, float it under the radar and everything. But this right here, this was her big moment to shine. This is a franchise that's literally over 10, 15 something years old, It has its fan base. And like, she's the lead star of this. She's an executive producer. You know what I'm saying? Like, she really had to show everybody that, hey, look, I can surpass my Riverdale days and show everybody I'm worth hiring in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? But she's not going to do it with these movies. Now, maybe she'll do it if somebody be like, okay, she was pretty good in this slasher. Let's hire her for another slasher. But the real money isn't just starring in something, it's also producing. When you got that producing power, nobody can take advantage of you. And I've said it before, a lot of these stars in Hollywood today are getting smarter and wiser to Hollywood's BS by becoming producers in the things that they star in. That is very smart. And, this could essentially hurt her career in Hollywood because she's really only known now for two major things. Well, three major things. One, looking hot. Two, Riverdale, which that is not no accomplishment right there because Riverdale is Riverdale. And now this franchise of The Strangers. So if she really wants to show like Hollywood what she's made of, first of all, whoever screwed these movies up needs to be fired. If it's her, then she doesn't need to produce no more. She just needs to act and stuff. And, because I would hate for like the failure of like The Strangers and the abysmal reception of Riverdale to be what she's known for and known for only. You know what I'm saying? Because when that live action Kim Possible movie was getting made by Disney Channel, a lot of people said she should play Kim Possible. She looks like Kim Possible. She has a fan base because of Riverdale, even though that Kim Possible movie sucked. But still, the fact that people are even thinking about casting her tells you that she's on people's minds. She could be in a comic book movie. There are tons of redheads in comic books. Well, it can't be Mary Jane Watson right now because Zendaya is doing that. But like, she could be a Jean Grey. She could be somebody, you know what I'm saying? A fire star. Like somebody like big and everything. But that's not gonna happen if she's starring in movies like this. I mean, because she has exposure, like I said before, from Riverdale. So she has that fan base. She has the CW fan base. And not only that, but she's gonna have some exposure to the black community because she's dating Tigra, which I don't know why in the world she would want to date him. Why would you want to date Kylie Jenner's ex? When you hear the name Jenner or Kardashian, you run. You don't date their exes. Especially because he has a slight criminal background with all these allegations and stuff and charges. Not charged. He never been charged, but he has allegations of a couple of stuff. But I don't know whatever happened to those. The last criminal allegation he had was domestic violence against like his ex-girlfriend. Why would you date somebody who's been accused of that? Like, why? Like, take the safe road and just date somebody else. Don't be a Pamela Anderson and date a bad boy. Cause look all them bad boys she dated in the past. You know, like, cause I swear to God, if this white girl ends up black and blue, you know who's gonna do it to her, and that's gonna be bad because Tiger is black and everything. And I hope that never happens. But maybe those allegations were just allegations. Like, we don't know, you know what I'm saying? But seriously, like, I want to see her succeed in Hollywood. Like, I really do. I really want to have that movie if I can just buy, like, oh, that was a good horror movie or a superhero movie. And hey, one of my favorite actresses in it. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I just feel bad for, like, Madeline because it's like, she's the only person out there promoting this movie because of course she's the lead and she's really the only person who does anything. They can't tell the identity of the other two strangers, and so she's really the only person promoting this movie. And she put out a statement talking about, like, this was a couple of days before the movie came out, just a few more days until my movie comes out. And then she put out another statement talking about she's very proud of the work they done on the movie. You know, she knows that they're not super proud about this, but they have to say that and everything. And, you know, when it comes to the other two strangers, there's really only two other people it could be. Because it can't just be a random, like, background character that never has any dialogue. It has to be Ella's character, who's like baby doll and everything. And it has to probably be maybe that deputy dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, it has to be somebody, but no guy really has any, like, screen time really, except for that deputy dude. And I'm not even sure that the same deputy dude that died, who got, like, crossbowed in the face. But then that was so funny in the flashback. Shelly was playing with the doll that had either baby doll's face on it or pinup doll's face on it. So you knew exactly who she was. Oh, this could have really been a great, like, slashery type franchise, but sadly, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.